श्रीमान वेंकटनाथार्य कवितार्के केसरी वेदांत आचार्य वर्यो में सन्निधत्तां सदाहृति. In this Dhanur mAsam, it is a Bhagavata's ajna to explain or enjoy the wonderful stotras of Vedanta Desika on Nyaasam, Nyaasa Dashakam, 10 slokams on Sharanagati Tattvam, and Nyaasa Vimshati, 20 slokam. And both these slokams are so wonderful and so esoteric, majestic, divine. The magnificent work of Nyaasa Dashakam and the divine Nyaasa Vimshati, they are extremely deep and rich in meaning of the Sharanagati Shastram, Sharanagati Tattvam. And our most compassionate Acharya Sarvabhauman Vedanta Desika has encapsulated so beautifully the Vedanta Tattvams, the Upanishadic Tattvams, and also following the Alvas, Acharyas, performance of Sharanagati, and is kind of encapsulated with the depth of allusions and brilliance to Alvar Pasurams. And Swami has packed the meaning of each of the words in Nyaasa Dashakam and Nyaasa Vimshati with so much of depth. And so we are going to, with trepidation, with shiver, Adiyen is praying to Acharyas and Asmad Acharyan to bless us with the right mindset and with utter humility. I would like to narrate from the most brilliant compilation made by Dr. V. N. Vedanta Desikan, released by Srimathe Andavan Poundrivaram Swami Ashram back in 2006 for Nyaasa Vimshati with 3 Vyakhyanams and Nyaasa Dashakam with 4 Vyakhyanams. That too, Sri Shaila Tatachar's extensive commentary with authoritative scriptures, pramanams, and wonderful descriptions. Sri Bhashya Srinivasa Acharya's Sanskrit commentary. Sri Kurichi Gopala Tatacharya's Tamil commentary, Vyakhyanam. And for Nyaasa Tilakam, which we are not going to touch upon, we have Swami Desikan's son, Nayanara Acharya, had written a Sanskrit commentary. So, Adiyen, with folded hands, appeal to each one of you to seek forgiveness from you for taking this, because fools rush in where angels fear to tread. Adiyen just wants to share and make sure that people who are on the wall, who are unable to decide whether to do now or later or after retirement, the Bharanyasam, the Sharanagati, we need to understand the Tattvam, the concept behind it, and the beautiful way in which Swami Desikan puts it, even in his magnum opus Srivat Rahasya Trayasaram. So we will follow the commentaries, but before that, let's just have a small preamble or introduction about this. Why Sharanagati? What's the reason? Because the highest spiritual goal for any Jivatma is to get rid of the future births, the vicious cycle of birth and death, the karmas, the vasanas, all these things we need to cross and reach the divine abode, in Sri Vaikuntham, performing eternal Kaikaryam at the lotus feet of Sriman Narayana. Thereby, it will be complete Peranandam, absolute bliss. So, but we need to know what are the obstacles for the attainment of the highest spiritual goal, which is Prapti Virodhi. The major obstacles are avidya, karma. Avidya stands for the ignorance of our Jivatma's nature, the true nature of our Jivatma. That's the ignorance. Ahamatma nadehosmi. Vishnu Svesho aparigraha. Tameva Sharanam prapta tatkainkarya chikirshaya. Swami Deshkan quotes. Yan ariyum shudaragi nindren matrum yadumile. Aan amudat Thirumaladiyen mattror pattrumile. Taan amudanavantan sharane sharanendrinde. Manamiladimai panipunda manattinane. So, it is the ignorance of the true nature of the self, that the self, the Jivatma, is eternally the Shesha Bhutan of Perumal, property of Perumal. We forget. We are mistaking the physical body for the self first. Or we are thinking oneself as the independent, Swatantram, without being aware of our absolute dependence on Perumal. And that is avidya. Karma refers to the punyam and papam. The performance of a good deed causes punyam. The performance of what is prohibited by the sastrams leads to papam, sins. So the punya and papa refer to the pleasure and displeasure of Perumal, anugraham and nigraham. And thereby, of course, the vasana comes, the impression generated by both karma as well as avidya. So by performing a deed, good or bad, we develop a tendency to do it again and again and again, causing punya and papa respectively. These in turn generate ignorance, avidya. So once again we indulge in acts, performance prohibited by Shastra, do more sins, papams accrued over aeons, ages, births. It causes bondage in the form of being born again and again. Mari mari palapirappam pirande. In this way, it goes on like a wheel with chain reaction. So, the primary factor which is responsible for all this kind of involvement in the continuous bondage is the displeasure of Perumal, nigraha, incurred continually from the time immemorial by disobedience of Perumal's ajna, shastrams, God's commands. As a punishment, the soul is associated with the physical body, the mind, the sense organ, and makes us become a slave to the body and sense organ. We are born again, and the punishment imposed by Perumal may take different forms depending on the magnitude of papam. A soul may take a lower birth like animals, insects, in which there is absolutely no chance of acquiring any knowledge. Even if one were lucky enough to get birth as a human being, aridaridu manidarai pirattalaridu, even if we get, he is misled by the wrong teaching of atheists. If one can escape it, he may be influenced by wrong knowledge, which like a Maya hides the true nature of the Paramatma and causes greater attachment to worldly pleasures. By repeatedly committing offenses, one is dragged into birth and death. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. So it is possible for some individuals to acquire Vedic knowledge, of course, but they may be tempted to aspire for Swargam or Indra Padavi by worshipping the lower deities, devatas, idara devatas, thereby deprive themselves of the opportunity of attaining moksha. Even those who undertake dhyanam, upasana, may not achieve the goal. Upasana is of different kind depending on the goal. A person may meditate on Prakriti, cosmic matter, or the lower deity such as Indra, or one's own Jivatma, self. So all such upasanas give certain types of higher spiritual power but not lead to moksha. Moksham dadati iti Mukunda. Mukunda alone can grant moksham. So, the Bhagavan Nigraha, or the displeasure of God incurred by the repeated commitment of papams, can prevent us from achieving the liberation, the moksham and the liberation from the future births. Only the most blessed, fortunate soul, Jivatma, which comes under the purview of Bhagavad Anugraham, or the grace of God, is capable of achieving it. It is difficult to find out who is such a fortunate person to be blessed, or who is the unfortunate one not to be blessed. The only remedy to overcome the greatest obstacle in the way of attaining moksha, as Ramanuja has emphatically stated, is to seek the refuge or protection of Vishnu, the supreme deity, by means of complete, unflinching, unconditional self-surrender, Sharanagati. Tasya Vashikaranam tat Sharanagatireva. Swami mentions that. Tasya Vashikaranam tat Sharanagatireva. So, Tameva Sharanam Gacha in Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, 62nd sloka, it says. So, we need to know that Sharanagati is the means of attainment of Vishnu. But then we get so many questions, so many doubts, because we need to be clear as to why, what, is it true? So Prapatti or Sharanagati as a direct means, upaya is means to attain moksha as a distinctive concept or doctrine. So Bhakti Yogam and Prapatti are the two important sadhanas for achieving the supreme Paramapurushartham. Bhakti Yogam and Prapatti. So, in Ahirbudnya Samhita, it says Bhakti Yogam and Prapatti alone one can get that. One can attain moksham. Here we need to understand that Bhakti Yoga is extremely difficult to practice, and we would touch upon when we are enjoying the individual slokams of Nyaasa Vimshati and Nyaasa Dashakam. We would get to know that. Now we need to understand that the Bhakti Yogam, the meaning of Bhakti Yogam and the meaning of Prapatti is to be understood in clear manner, Bhakti versus Prapatti. Vedanta Desika asserts that Bhakti Yoga and Prapatti are the two important means to secure the grace of God or His Kripai. Bhakti, Prapatti, Pramukam, Tadaiva Vasikara Karanam. So, here, Bhaktya Paramaya Vapi, Prapatyava Mahamate, Prapyoham Nanyata Prapya, Mama Kainkarya Lipsubihi. It is quoted from a Pancharatra treatise. So, here it is stated that it is only either by means of intense bhakti, which is Bhakti Yogam, or by means of Prapatti or Sharanagati, that it is possible to attain God. Though Bhakti Yoga and Prapatti are Sharanagati and Prapatti, Bharanyasam are all synonyms. Bhakti Yoga and Prapatti are laid down as two alternative means for attaining God. Our Sri Vaishnavism has accorded greater importance to Prapatti. According to both Ramanuja and Vedanta Desika, it is not possible to attain moksham without observing Sharanagati or Prapatti in some form or the other. It's not possible. How do we say so? because the implication of that is that even those who resort to Bhakti Yogam as the means to moksham, they have to observe Prapatti as a subsidiary, as an angam to Bhakti Yoga. The purpose of that Prapatti for Bhakti Yogis is to seek the grace of God, His Anugraham, His Daya, in order to overcome the challenges, obstacles, hurdles standing in the way of commencement of Bhakti Yoga, and also for successful completion of Bhakti Yoga. In the case of those who resort to Prapatti as a direct means to moksham, Prapatti can secure the result through the grace of God without the need to follow Bhakti Yoga. So in view of this, Vedanta Deshika classifies Prapatti into two categories. Sadvaraka Prapatti, that is Prapatti as an angam, as a subsidiary means to Bhakti Yoga, and Advaraka Prapatti, that Prapatti serving as a direct means to moksha. So they are also called Anga Prapatti or Angi Prapatti. Anga Prapatti, Prapatti as a subsidiary or Angam to Bhakti Yogam, or Angi Prapatti as the principal mean, direct mean. So all the aspirants for moksham are in a broad sense are prapannas, or those who perform Prapatti, those who are resorting to Sharanagati, the self-surrender. Both Bhakti Yogis and Prapannas are Bhaktas, are devotees of God in a totality sense, because both have to develop Bhakti, devotion, in order to secure, in order to please Perumal and attain His grace, His kripai. Bhakti is a general term which means love towards God. An individual who wishes to undertake Prapatti should be deeply devoted to God, should have preeti, love. Even after he has observed Prapatti, performed Sharanagati, he or she, whenever I say he, it also applies to she, needs Bhakti to perform, the devotion to perform the Kaikaryam, which is a moral duty for a Prapanna. So, though Bhakti and Prapatti are interrelated, we are going to enjoy this in the individual slokams as well. But just to be clear that we are all on the same page, I would like to say, though Bhakti and Prapatti are interrelated, there are two distinct, but they are two distinct but alternative means to attain moksha. This is justified on the basis of principle followed in the Vedanta. The Upanishads speak of several types of upasanas: Dagara Vidya, Sadvidya, Madhu Vidya, Vaishwanara Vidya, etc. They are called by different names because of the difference in the description of object of contemplation, like Brahman in terms of its different attributes. But the most important point of difference between Bhakti Yogam and Prapatti is that Bhakti Yogam is a rigorous discipline, whereas Prapatti is the easiest method to attain moksha. But we immediately get a question in our mind: would it be appropriate to regard a tough, terse, rigorous discipline and an easy method as alternatives for the same goal? Doesn't make sense. The answer is yes, on the ground that they are prescribed for two different categories of people, individuals, with the different eligibility requirements. Adhikari Bedam. A person who takes the Bhakti Yogam should acquire the Shastram, philosophic knowledge, and should go through the discipline of Karma Yogam, Jnana Yogam, leading to the direct intuition of Atma Avalokanam, Jivatma Sakshatkaram. Karma Yoga consists in the strict observance of rituals and the acts prescribed by the Shastrams, by the sacred text, purely for the pleasure of Perumal, divine pleasure, without any selfish motive. Satvika Tyagam, Jnana Yoga refers to constant meditation, contemplation on the individual Jivatma, individual self, until it leads to the direct vision of the Jivatma Sakshatkara. After successful completion of Jnana Yoga, the person should embark on Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga involves unceasing, uninterrupted meditation, dhyanam, on God until the person is able to perfect it to the extent of reaching realization, similar to the actual direct perceptual vision of God. It is so beautifully explained. This is to be practiced not only for the lifetime but to be continued in the subsequent lives as well, until all the obstacles in the form of prarabdha karma are removed, which stand in the way, is completely removed, leading to the final goal of moksha. This implies that the aspirant should have the patience to the delay. It need not be in this janma, it could be taking several janmas, just like the Jadabharata story. The practice of Bhakti Yoga is also restricted to the person born in Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya caste. It should be men, and all those restrictions are there. Whereas Prapatti, Sharanagati, Bharanyasam, on the contrary, does not require the observance of Karma Jnana Yogam as preliminary, nor there is any restriction on the basis of caste, color, creed, gender, nothing. It is open to all, irrespective of their birth. Even the person born in the lowest caste and the worst papi are eligible for prapatti. Besides, it is to be observed only once. That's all. Sakrideva prapannaya tavasmi iti chayachate abhayam sarvabhutebhyo dadami yatad vratam mama, says Rama in seashore. Sakrit, only once, in the form of absolute sharanagati, self-surrender at the feet of God with all humility, faith, and the realization of one's utter incapacity to adopt any other means of moksha. The prapanna does not have to wait for another life to attain moksha, because he can get it at the end of the present life. Yetad deha vasane mam. We are going to enjoy that in Nyaasa Dashakam. As soon as the prarabdha karma, or the karma which has already begun to give result, is removed or eradicated by enduring it, by living it, it is thus considered to be an easier path to be adopted for moksha. For those who are not qualified or who are not capable of performing bhakti yoga, and who are also keen to attain moksha, either at the end of the present life or even sooner, even right now. Artha prapatti is right now. Even if they are capable of performing bhakti yoga but unable to stand for one more birth, no delay is acceptable. So they can perform prapatti as a direct means. Upasana or bhakti yogam in the Upanishad is meant for those who have the capacity, eligibility to perform, who have the patience to wait for even few more births until the goal is achieved. But it's an enjoyment. Bhakti yogam is an enjoyment, even if you are spending few lives. Swami Sri Acharya used to narrate this to an example. If you are going from Chennai to Mumbai, you can take a flight direct. 2 hours you reach. That could be like the prapatti. If you are taking bhakti yogam, if you are taking a car, you drive on the road, you stop at few locations, get down, enjoy the journey, and take few snaps, and reach Mumbai, maybe 2 days after. But that's enjoying the journey. Whereas, unable to bear the delay, we want now, for sure, with no hindrance, unable to even travel, we take the flight, direct means. Or another example could be there are 18-story building. You can climb the steps 18 stories or go by lift. It automatically takes you to the 18th floor. All that you need to do is to press once the button number 18. That effort is required. You cannot just simply go into the lift and wait without pressing the button, saying that the Bhagavan knows that I need to go to 18, so I will automatically go. No, an effort is required to press. So, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Yoga can confer only one of the 4 desired objects. Aishwaryam, Arti, Artharti, Jignasu, Jnani. There are 4 types of devotees. The Aishwaryam which has been lost, worldly prosperities to be newly acquired, Artharti. Or Kaivalyam, the state of blissful Jivatma Sakshatkara. Or Moksham, liberation from bondage. There are 4 categories of individuals who practice Bhakti Yoga to attain one of the 4 results which are granted by Perumal. In other words, Bhakti Yoga can help to achieve any of these 4 goals. In the same way, Prapatti also can confer, through the grace of God, any of these desired goals. One can perform Prapatti for any other than moksha, we can perform. The basis for this claim is all merciful, all powerful, Sarveshwaran, Sarvashaktan, Sarvajnan, whose grace is secured, is capable of conferring, giving us, granting all the desired objects. He would be able to grant us. Sarvam sampatyate pumsam. So here, everything he can grant. Thus, Prapatti, though it is simple, easier method for obtaining God's grace, can secure all the desired objects, including moksha, the highest purushartha. But we need to understand, Bhakti and Prapatti are the sadhyopayam, but there is something called siddhopayam. Bhakti and Prapatti are only the means, but it is the grace of God, it is the kripai, it is His mercy that plays a major role in securing moksha. God is the actual direct means for it. It is He who grants us moksha, whether it is Bhakti Yogi or Prapanna. Brahman is the causeway for attaining the eternal state. Amritasya yesha setuhu, Mundaka Upanishad states. Katha Upanishad says, Paramatman can be attained only by those on whom He blesses with His grace. Yamevaisha vrunute tena labhya. In view of this, God is described as Siddhopayam. Siddham means ready, one who has been in existence even prior to the observance of our Bhakti Yogam or Prapatti. He is ever there, He is already there, He is ever there. Siddhamarka, he says. Whereas the sadhana, if God is the upayam for moksham, if He is the means, if His grace is the means, what is the need for Bhakti Yogam or Prapatti? Why do we have to undertake them? Like I said, the answer is that Bhakti and Prapatti are required to secure the grace of God. The individual souls have been deprived of the enjoyment of the blissful Brahman in the state of moksha because of our beginningless anadi karma, which stands in the way of as a hurdle of attaining God. The removal of this obstacle is possible only by the grace of God. Bhakti Yoga and Prapatti serve the purpose of winning that grace of God. Therefore, they are described as sadhyopaya. That is the means to be observed for attaining Perumal. Sadhya means what is to be accomplished by human effort. Sadhyopayam means Bhakti or Prapatti is to be accomplished by individuals to earn the pleasure of God, to earn the grace of God. And of course, God is the primary cause. So far as He, through His grace, helps an individual in his endeavor to attain moksha, bhakti and prapatti are the accessory cause for moksha. If God were to shower grace, God is Sarvajnan, Sarvashaktan. Why does He not know that we need moksha? Why should I say surrender? Then only He will give. He can give. If God were to shower His grace on an individual without any effort on his part, he would be open to criticisms or partiality, arbitrariness. Hence, Bhakti Yogam and Prapatti are enjoined or talked about by Shruti as upayams, as means to invoke, to attain the grace of God. So, we would enjoy more as to what is this Prapatti, what are the Angams, why should we perform, what are the fruits, and how one should behave after performance of Prapatti. Can we perform? What do we should do? What we should not do? How do we perform? Everything is so beautifully explained by our Acharya Sarvabhaman Vedanta Desika. And in spite of Adiyen's rambling, because Adiyen is simply reproducing in crude English from the extensive, wonderful commentaries written by the scholars, compiled by Dr. V. and Vedanta Desikan, with Acharya Anugraham, we would complete the Nyaasa Dashakam and Nyaasa Vimshati in the next 30 days. Adiyen, Acharyan Thiruvadigale Sharanam, Kavitarkika Simhaya Kalyana Gunashaline, Srimathe Venkateshaya Vedanta Gurave Namaha. Dhanyosmi. Adiyen.